On day 4 of the US-Israeli war on Iran, the US president has claimed Iran wants to talk, but it's too late. Posting on his Truth Social platform, Donald Trump said the country's Air Force, Navy and leadership were gone. In some of today's other developments, the US and Israel carried out new attacks on Tehran, including on the presidential compound and state broadcaster. Israeli ground troops advanced into southern Lebanon and continued bombing Beirut. Iran fired drones in retaliation at its neighbours in the Gulf, including 2 that struck the US embassy in Riyadh, causing minor damage. Iran also continues to strangle shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, where a fifth of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas passes.
Devastation on the streets of Tehran for a 4th day, as a bustling, densely populated city of nearly 10 million people is rapidly turned into a battered war zone. Waves of US and Israeli warplanes and missiles have descended on the city in their quest for regime change. The heart of the Iranian government is the target, but it continues to beat defiantly. Security Chief Ali Larijani says Iran has prepared itself for a long war. He is seen as filling the power vacuum after the assassination of the supreme leader. The human costs are escalating. The Red Crescent says the death toll in Iran is well over 700, including about 150 girls killed on Saturday, their young lives cruelly pulled into the battle for control of the country. Nearly 2,000 kilometres away, Beirut is once again awakening to a familiar sound. Loud blasts echo across this ancient, war-weary city. The Lebanese capital's southern suburbs, swelled for decades with Palestinian refugees, is a stronghold for Iranian-backed armed group Hezbollah. Iran continues its fierce response with waves of missiles and drones. It may not have the capabilities to reach the US, but it can strike its many strategic and military assets across the Gulf. Iran's foreign minister insists they don't want to regionalise the war, but says US bases in the region are legitimate targets. And despite its air defence system, Iranian missiles have hit central Israel. At least 10 people have been killed in Israel since Saturday. Less than a week ago, both sides were talking, seeking a diplomatic solution to Iran's nuclear enrichment. Now, the Natanz nuclear site has been hit. Whether it is out of action is unknown. But what we do know is that anger and shock in the world's most volatile region is growing, as its diverse peoples suffer once again, whilst their leaders fight for power. David Landy, RTE News.
Lebanon has been drawn further into the war. Hezbollah fired rockets towards Israel, and Israel responded by repeatedly hitting Beirut from the skies. Israeli ground forces then advanced into southern Lebanon in what they said was an attempt to create a security zone. Around 350 Irish soldiers are based in that area, most of them at Camp Shamrock on a UN peacekeeping mission.
Smoke billowing over Beirut today after hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah escalated. The Iran-backed Lebanese group fired rockets into Israel to avenge the killing of the Iranian supreme leader. Israel responded with airstrikes on the capital, targeting Hezbollah-controlled areas. More than 30,000 people have been displaced from southern Lebanon after evacuation orders were given for over 24 towns, many seeking refuge in shelters like this school in Beirut.
We're in so much pain, honestly. We can't feel any safety or stability, nothing. We feel afraid and scared.
Along with airstrikes, the Israeli military has sent troops into the south of the country. There are 358 Irish soldiers serving with UNIFIL in southern Lebanon, close to the border with Israel.
There's been limited incursions into the Irish area of operations as well as limited strikes. There is an increase in activity along the blue line, but there has been no major incursion into the area of operations right as of now. They've been in bunkers the previous 2 nights and then out during the day. But the important thing about going to the bunkers is you're able to maintain a situational awareness and communication with the forward posts. So still while being in them, you can maintain the observation of the blue line and reporting and observing as per the mandate.
As well as the UNIFIL troops, there are also 14 personnel in other missions in Syria, Lebanon and Israel who have had to go to bunkers due to heightened tensions. The Defence Forces says it is keeping all families informed of the well-being of their loved ones. Diane Connor, RTE News, Mickey Barracks in Dublin.
US President Donald Trump has been meeting German Chancellor Friedrich Merz at the White House. He's the first European leader to visit Washington since the war began. As the leader spoke to the press in the Oval Office, Mr. Trump admitted that he was not certain what would be next for Iran after the war.
Security tight near the US Embassy in Saudi Arabia after 2 drones struck, and smoke rises from the vicinity of the US Embassy in Kuwait. The message to American citizens in the Middle East from the State Department: take cover immediately or try and leave, as Iran retaliates. Top Trump administration officials are back on Capitol Hill today, briefing lawmakers about the operation. The head of the Department of Homeland Security is also before Congress as Republicans call on Democrats to agree to start refunding DHS, pointing to a high terrorist risk in the US following attacks on Iran.
The latest Democrat-led shutdown of DHS is reckless, it's unnecessary, and it undermines the American national security.
Well, thank you very much, everybody.
For the US president, he's meeting with the German Chancellor at the White House, the first European leader to see the Commander-in-Chief since the operation began, as his country, with the UK and France, issued a joint statement urging negotiations.
Now, they no longer have air protection. They no longer have any detection facilities at all left, and so they're gonna be in for a lot of hurt.
We are supporting the United States and Israel to get rid of this terrible terrorist regime, and we are looking forward to a day after, and we have to talk about the strategy. What is following after this regime?
With no sign of the operation ending anytime soon, President Trump claimed Iran wanted to talk, but for him, he said, it's too late.
And our Washington correspondent Jackie Fox is standing by. And Jackie, President Donald Trump was speaking to the press today in the Oval Office. He defended the US's actions in Iran. He also, however, had some very harsh words for both the UK and for Spain.
That's right, Tommy. I mean, overall, it was a warm welcome for the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in the Oval Office. He even got a slap on the knee from Donald Trump at one stage. But harsh words for Spain, who he threatened to cut off trade with, and harsh words for the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer too, who he said wasn't cooperating. And he said, listen, we're not dealing with Winston Churchill here. And this is supposed to be on a day where intelligence is important for justification of this operation. The bar is high for Americans, especially after Iraq. And is that bar being met? Not for many Democrats and some MAGA Republicans too. They are baffled by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio's comments last night. He said the US attacked Iran, and one of the reasons was for a preemptive strike because Israel was going to attack Iran and it was worried about retaliation from Iran. Now, here at the White House, just in the last hour, Donald Trump said Israel didn't force his hand. He may have forced Israel's hand, contradicting Marco Rubio, who is sitting right in front of him in the Oval Office and is due back on Capitol Hill later to brief lawmakers about the operation.
All right, Jackie Fox in Washington, thank you.
Well, oil and gas prices continue to surge on world markets today. Home heating oil has increased significantly since last week, while smaller increases in petrol and diesel prices have also been reported, despite government warnings against price gouging at the pumps.
This satellite imagery from yesterday shows the aftermath of an attack on Saudi Arabia's biggest oil refinery. Iran has been targeting energy infrastructure across the region, including in the Strait of Hormuz, through which a fifth of global oil supply travels. But due to Iranian attacks and threats, only 4 vessels made it through on Sunday, compared to a daily average of 24 in January, with the situation having a significant impact. Energy prices have spiked with the escalating conflict. A barrel of Brent crude, that's risen by roughly 14% since Friday to around €85. But the jump in wholesale gas prices is much more pronounced. The price per megawatt hour is up by around a third to just under €60. To put those increases into context, you can see in early 2022, just after Russia invaded Ukraine, there were those huge spikes. A barrel of oil, that was costing almost €130, while gas was around €330 per megawatt hour. So while prices have jumped because of the Iran war, we're not in the same situation we were in 4 years ago. Although Irish consumers should only start to feel these increases once suppliers are buying new stock, there are anecdotal reports of people already being charged significantly more for the likes of home heating oil and other fuels.
People are usually locked into gas or electricity contracts. It's different with heating oil because people get deliveries on more of an ad hoc basis, and so companies can, I suppose, do a little bit what they want there. But we have only seen an increase so far in 10 to 15% in traded oil prices on the markets. So you shouldn't really expect to see retail prices dramatically rising at anything above that at this stage.
The Irish Petrol Retailers Association says it's expecting prices at the pumps to go up, but that this could be short-lived once markets adapt. Angus Cox, RTE News.
The opposition has called on the government to unequivocally condemn the US-Israeli actions in Iran. Labour accused the coalition of soft-pedalling a response in advance of the Taoiseach's St. Patrick's Day meeting with the US President in Washington. Taoiseach Micheál Martin repeated his call for de-escalation, and he added that multilateralism had failed to rein in Iran.
As bombs rain down on Iran, the political focus here is on the government's response to the US-Israeli actions, with the opposition accusing the coalition of a failure to call out an illegal war.
Why is it that you will not call out this aggression and name it for what it is? You express concern, you call for restraint, but you notably stop short of condemning those that have launched this attack.
Taoiseach Micheál Martin said the international rules-based order had been powerless to do anything about Iran, pointing out the thousands of Iranians executed recently for protesting.
And I believe this conflict should be de-escalated as quickly as possible. The Iranian regime not only suppressed its own people, but was responsible for the deaths of many innocent people across not just the Middle East, but globally. It has sponsored terror, and you looked the other way for years on that.
Labour leader Ivana Bacik condemned the Iranian regime as brutal, but she also said the attacks were illegal.
Why can we not hear the Irish government condemning clearly the US-Israeli strikes as in breach of international law? There is, I think, Taoiseach, a clear indication that you're soft-pedalling a national response in fear of upsetting Washington.
The normalisation of war, including the invasion at will of sovereign states, is a path that only leads to destruction and loss of life.
In 2 weeks' time, the Taoiseach Micheál Martin will meet President Trump in the White House. The outbreak of war in the Middle East has significantly turned up the political heat on what was already a tricky meeting. Sandra Hurley, RTE News, Leinster House.
All options are said to be on the table when it comes to assisting Irish citizens in the Middle East. Around 20,000 Irish people are believed to be living in or passing through that region. Well, for more on this, let's speak to our political correspondent, Micheál Lehane. Micheál, have we any idea yet of what those options are?
Well, the government have been working over the last number of days on contingency plans. There was a degree of caution generally until something very firm and solid was nailed down. And as I understand it, in the last few hours, there is a plan in place now that will see a flight going into the region that will be sent by the government. And it doesn't go quite into the epicentre of the conflict, so there will be a bus journey involved for the Irish people who are hoping to get out. And of course, that brings places like Oman into focus. Possibly. I suppose it is clear too from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Helen McEntee's comments earlier this morning on where the priorities will lie, given that a list was being drawn up of people with medical conditions and also people who might be at an advanced stage of pregnancy, that they would be the ones who would get the first flight out. But it does seem like something has been agreed now and an announcement is fairly imminent.
OK, well, hopefully we can get more detail on all of that when we speak to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Helen McEntee, later on 6-1.
Well, staying with that story, and earlier the Cabinet met to discuss contingency plans for Irish citizens in the Middle East. We're joined now in studio by the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Defence, Helen McEntee, and thanks indeed for joining us on 6-1, Minister. There's around 2,000 Irish people on holiday or transiting through the region. We heard from some of them yesterday on the 6-1. They are eager to get home. What will the Irish government be doing to help them?
Well, look, can I just appreciate the situation that they're in, and I think the longer it goes on, the more difficult it is for people, particularly those who aren't living there, who are transiting through, who are on holidays and just want to get home. The numbers are increasing every day, I will stress that. We've been asking people to register, not just those living there, but those in transit and on holidays, so we have a very clear picture as to who is in the region. And as of today, there's over 24,000 people have registered. Not all of those are still in the region, but that still means that the figure of up to 2,000 is probably accurate for those who want to get home, who are in transit. There are a number of different options that we've been looking at. So the first and the quickest and the best option is still for commercial airlines to bring people home, particularly given so much of our population is in the UAE, is in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And we've seen over the last few days a number of flights that have been taken off, not all of them to the west, many of them are heading east, but on those flights we have Irish people, and we're engaging directly with those airlines to see, can we in the coming days ensure that some of those direct flights are coming to Dublin. Secondly,
for those who can't,
Secondly, what we're looking at and what we've agreed now is that we will have an Irish government chartered flight. It's important that we can obviously say that this is the first of many, I hope, and that our focus now is making sure that in the next few hours, you'll appreciate it, I think it's about 10:30 there at night, but by tomorrow we'll be reaching out to citizens to try and make sure that that first chartered flight is full. I have to say all of this with a caveat that everything that we're doing now, it's on the basis that airspace is open, that it's safe to do so, and that we're asking people to travel, because this will not be the UAE airport, it will be Oman that we're talking about, that people are in a position to travel as well.
And how many people will be able to avail of that flight, and how will you get them to that airport?
So, I mean, we're looking at one of the largest planes that we can, and that's probably up to about 280 people. So I appreciate when you talk about the thousands who are there, that is a fraction of the number of people that may want to get home at the same time. You know, if you look at the calls, we've about 2,000 people have contacted the crisis management office that we've set up since Saturday, and what we're doing now is working through those calls. Again, looking at the calls that have come into our embassies in the region and identifying where there are more vulnerable people, whether it's because of their age, whether it's from health conditions. We know that there are people who are at advanced stages of pregnancy, other reasons as well, and we'll be identifying those people. And of course, as I said, the intention that this will be the first flight of many, but also we can see the backlogs are being cleared as well through those commercial flights that are still operating from within the region.
We saw a map there of the region and the distance in terms of trying to get to Oman. How will you transport people there? How can they avail of that?
We'll have to do that via bus, and that's something that we've been working on. So we've been working on this for a number of days. There are different reports as to how long it will take. It was taking, because we know some people have taken the journey up to 8 hours, delays at the border and then getting to the airport in Muscat. Others have done it in 6. So, I mean, this all depends on what is happening on the ground. And of course, this, which we hope will happen in the coming days, will be on the basis that it's safe to do so and that the advice remains the same. So while the advice to general citizens is to please remain where you are, to please remain sheltered, if you have access to a flight, the advice is to please take that and obviously to follow through to the airport where you're being asked to do so.
Can you say when that flight is leaving?
You'll appreciate I can't, because we're working on that, but what I can say is the intention is that it will be in the coming days. This is an extremely complex operation, but when I say the coming days, we will be contacting people tomorrow about the flight. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so we hope to have it in the coming days.
And you're hoping to accommodate around 200 people. There's obviously an awful lot more
280,
people. 280, but there's obviously an awful lot more people that would hope to also get home. Will there be more? Are you looking at that?
Absolutely. So we intend that this is the first flight, but you'll appreciate that this is not the only option that we're looking at. It's important that we're able to do this. We have an agreement now, and we're going to move to have this in place as quickly as possible. There are Irish citizens, people I've spoken to myself, that are already getting home appreciate they may have to fly to London, some are flying to other parts of Europe, but our focus is also looking at how we can, through the European mechanism, see if there are further flights that we can charter so that it's a shared chartered flight. The one that I've announced, or that I'm saying to you now, is a Government of Ireland flight with Irish citizens that will be on board. There may be options if airspace opens up. And again, this is all predicated on the fact that we need what's happening at the moment to remain. And of course, if airspace can open up even further, if the likes of the airlines that are flying out of Abu Dhabi or Dubai can do more, we're encouraging them, we're asking them, we're engaging with them on a daily basis to make sure that they do that.
All right, just to change tack slightly, there's 358 Irish soldiers in southern Lebanon, and obviously a lot of concern around them. If the situation deteriorates, are you giving consideration to moving them?
Well, at the outset, again, it's important to say that all our soldiers are accounted for and safe. And I know that it's a particular worry for their families because they are in an environment where we've seen an escalation in the last 24, 48 hours. They are at the direction of UNIFIL HQ, staying where they are. They're not the only battalion. Obviously, we have Italian, Polish and French, I think, mainly in the region. And it will be at the direction of the UNIFIL team as to what is safe to do. If there needs to be an evacuation, obviously that's something that needs to be considered. But for now...
Will there be consultation with yourself, with the Irish government?
Absolutely. Look, my engagement with the Chief of the Defence Forces is on a regular basis throughout the day and over the last number of days. But this will be a decision that needs to be taken by the Defence Forces themselves based on what's safe to do so and what their operation. I mean, they are still on the ground. They are still, while their patrols may be limited compared to what they had been, they are still operating on the ground and they are still carrying out the duty that they're all there to do and that we're very proud of.
In terms of the US's actions in Iran, you may have seen earlier at leaders' questions, the Labour Party, for example, were accusing the Irish government of soft pedalling, accusing the government of not wanting to upset Donald Trump ahead of the visit on St. Patrick's Day. Why isn't the Irish government being more strong in their condemnation? Spain has said that the US's actions were outside of international law. Do you agree? Was it outside of international law?
Well, look, my priority and focus is how do we de-escalate the situation. So we can talk back and forth on this, or we can focus our priority and our energy in trying to de-escalate the situation.
You'll know too, Donald Trump has said that the time for talking with Iran is over.
I mean, I've said in the last few days that it's very clear there isn't a congressional mandate here. It's very clear that there isn't a UN mandate, and I can't be any clearer in saying that from an Irish perspective, there should be any type of offence like this. There should be a UN mandate. And so our focus has been, through my own engagement with my own foreign affairs colleagues, we met on Sunday for many hours. We're going to meet again later on this week, specifically with ministers from within the Gulf region. Our focus has to be to get people back around the table. I don't accept that there is no ability to bring people back and to talk and to try and find a peaceful way forward, because this is the last thing that the region wanted. I've been there myself in recent weeks. It's very clear that this is the last thing that anybody in the region wanted, and so our focus as a government will be to try and do everything that we can, and our influence and our engagement, not just with European colleagues but with the US as well, to try and pull this back and to try and look towards peaceful solutions here for the overall outcome.
All right, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Defence, Helen McEntee, thanks for speaking to us on 6-1.